Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're tackling a framework that really seems to cut through the noise of customer data. Jobs to be done.
JTBD, yeah.
Exactly, JTBD. Forget just looking at, who your customers are. This is all about understanding what they're actually trying to accomplish. What job are they trying to get done?
Precisely. And our main guide for this deep dive is Jim Kalbach's The Jobs to Be Done Playbook.
Right.
Think of this less as a summary and more like a guided walkthrough. We really want to get into the core ideas, the theories, the practical frameworks Kalbach lays out.
So the goal is for everyone listening to walk away with a really solid grasp of JTBD and, how they might actually start using it.
That's the plan.
Yeah.
And the book itself is structured really nicely, actually. It follows these 5 key stages for providing value.
Yeah, the discover, define, design, deliver.
And that crucial last one, redevelop value. It's a cycle.
Okay, makes sense. So we'll follow that structure too. Let's dive right into chapter 1, understanding jobs to be done, and sort of lay the groundwork.
Sounds good. So chapter 1 sets the stage. It introduces JTBD not as some brand new fad, but as a field with history, different perspectives, but all kind of united by core principles.
And the biggest principle seems to be that shift in perspective you mentioned.
Absolutely. It's fundamental. Moving from thinking inside out, company first, to really seeing things outside in, from the customer's viewpoint.
That outside-in view, it feels like such a game changer. I remember reading Des Traynor from Intercom.
Oh, yeah, the co-founder.
Right. He said JTBD brought great focus to Intercom. And it wasn't just talk, was it? They got that huge funding round.
$125 million back in 2018.
Yeah.
Which suggests, investors really bought into that customer-centric approach they had, likely fueled by JTBD thinking.
It shows it's not just academic. Understanding why people switch solutions that reveals needs competitors might miss, right?
Exactly. And it's crucial to stress, this isn't just for, nimble startups.
Right. Kalbach mentions Intuit.
Yeah, Intuit.
Okay.
Think TurboTax. They've been around for ages, over 25 years, and still seeing double-digit growth.
Which is pretty rare these days.
It really is. In a world where big companies, S&P 500 companies, don't last nearly as long on average, Intuit's success story really underscores the power of deeply, consistently understanding and meeting customer needs over the long haul.
The book uses this metaphor, plays. Can you explain that a bit?
Sure. Kalbach calls the different GTBD techniques plays, just like in a sports playbook.
Okay.
So each play is an individual method, a tool in your toolkit, basically. You can use them one by one for specific issues or string them together for more complex challenges.
Makes it sound very practical, very hands-on.
It is. It's meant to be actionable.
It kind of reminds me of that famous Peter Drucker idea
Yeah.
about the purpose of a business.
Spot on. Kalbach actually brings up Drucker. Drucker said the only real purpose of a business is to create a customer.
Through marketing and innovation, right?
Exactly, those two. Marketing and innovation. And JTBD fits perfectly, doesn't it? It's all about understanding needs, that's the marketing side, and then innovating to meet those needs profitably.
Which brings us back to those 5 stages organizing the book. Let's maybe unpack those a little more.
Okay, stage 1, discover value. This is really about finding the right problem to solve.
Not just any problem.
No, the right one. It means getting out there, talking to people, understanding the struggles they face when they're trying to get something done.
Okay, discover the problem. Then comes define value.
Right. Once you've got potential problems, you need to set a clear direction. What does success actually look like for the customer? This is where you get specific about those needs we talked about, making them actionable, not just vague wishes.
Making them concrete so you can actually design for them, which leads to stage 3.
Design value, yeah. This is where you roll up your sleeves and create the actual solution, the product, the service. It needs to be desirable, viable for the business, but most importantly,
It has to actually work for the job.
it has to help the customer get their job done. That's the core.
Then deliver value,
Yeah,
getting it to the customer.
exactly. Taking that solution and getting it into their hands effectively. A good product isn't enough if the business model or the delivery doesn't work.
And finally, redevelop value. It's not a one-and-done thing.
Definitely not. Businesses need to be constantly learning, iterating, growing. Always looking for better ways to serve the customer, stay relevant. The book really stresses that iterative nature.
Something that really stood out in this first chapter was the critique of, well, traditional market research.
Yeah, Kalbach makes a good point there. Traditional methods often look at desires, emotions. which are important, sure.
but hard to act on sometimes.
Exactly. They can be fuzzy. So companies often fall back on demographics, market size stuff that's easy to measure.
But that might miss the deeper why.
Precisely. The underlying reasons people make choices often get overlooked.
So how does JTBD offer something more actionable?
It aims specifically for actionable intelligence about needs. Kalbach gives us that clear definition. A job to be done is the process of reaching objectives under given circumstances.
Okay, process, objectives, circumstances.
Right. And the focus on objectives is key. It zeroes in on the functional aspect, what are they trying to achieve? Not just broad goals or feelings, though those matter too. But JTDD starts with nailing that functional objective.
And the book mentions two main sort of camps within JTBD.
Yeah. Broadly speaking, first you've got the Switch School, mostly linked with Bob Moesta.
Okay, switch. What's their focus?
Their whole thing is understanding that moment of decision when a customer switches from one solution to another. They use these really deep, qualitative interviews.
To figure out the why behind the switch.
Exactly. What pushed them away from the old thing? What pulled them towards the new one? What anxieties did they have? The goal is to figure out why someone hires a new solution so you can increase demand by hitting those triggers.
Okay, that's the switch school. And the other one?
That's outcome-driven innovation, or ODI. Tony Olick is the main name there.
ODI, different approach.
Yeah, quite different. ODI focuses on systematically identifying all the desired outcomes customers want when trying to get a job done in a certain area.
All of them. How?
They use qualitative research first to uncover the outcomes, then quantitative surveys to measure how important each outcome is and how satisfied customers are with current solutions for achieving it.
Ah, so they prioritize based on importance and satisfaction gaps.
Precisely. ODI aims to drive innovation by targeting those high-importance, low-satisfaction outcomes, the unmet needs. The goal is increasing adoption by building something demonstrably better.
Got it. The book also revisits that famous milkshake marketing story. What's the JTBD angle there, and does Kalbach add any nuances?
Right. The milkshake example, often tied to Clayton Christensen. It's a classic JTBD illustration. McDonald's traditionally might have looked at demographics, who buys milkshakes, age, gender, etc., to sell more.
Centered approach.
But the JTBD question wasn't who, it was why.
Hmm.
Why are people hiring a milkshake?
What job is it doing?
Exactly. And the insight was, for morning commuters, the job was often keep me occupied and full during a long, boring drive. The thick shake took time to drink, filled them up.
Ah, so understanding the job in that specific circumstance, the commute was key. If you're trying to understand a product's popularity, think about the job it's doing in context.
You got it. But Kalbach adds an important critique.
Oh.
Starting with the milkshake, an existing solution can actually limit your thinking. It boxes you into that product category.
I see. So a broader JTBD view might define the job more widely.
Right. Maybe the job is really make my commute less boring and keep me full till lunch.
That opens the door to completely different solutions, not just better milkshakes.
That makes a lot of sense. So what are some of those core principles underpinning JTBD that Kalbach really hammers home?
Several key ones.
Yeah.
First, understanding the entire process someone goes through gives you insights you just don't get from demographics alone.
Okay, the process view.
Second, customers fundamentally value getting a job done better, faster, easier, cheaper, whatever better means for that job. Makes sense.
And third, JTBD isn't just a product development thing. It's a mindset that should permeate the whole organization. Sales, marketing, support, everyone.
And the benefits for companies adopting this.
They're pretty significant. You get a truly human-centered view of your customers. You connect with their real struggles.
And because you're focusing on stable needs, not just trends.
The insights last longer. It helps future-proof what you offer.
The book gives a specific formula for writing job statements, too. Verb plus object plus clarifier. Why that structure?
Consistency is crucial. That pattern ensures everyone's talking about customer goals the same way. It keeps the focus on the person's objective, not the technology.
Right, so conduct productive remote meetings, not use our video software.
Exactly. The clarifier just adds necessary context, like visit family on special occasions during the holidays. That precision helps you focus on the core need you're trying to solve.
And there's a strong emphasis on the process of getting the job done. What does that entail?
Right. JTBD doesn't see an objective as just one thing. It's a sequence, a procedure beginning, middle, end. People move through stages.
So you need to understand that whole flow.
Absolutely critical. You can map it out visually, a chronological job map. Break the main job into stages.
And each stage is like a smaller job.
Yep, little jobs.
Yeah.
And you can break those down even further into job steps,
Yeah.
the smallest distinct actions. But they aren't just tasks. They're sub-jobs making up the process.
So the job map becomes a central tool.
Hugely valuable. It helps organize your findings, focus discussions on the customer's actual journey, not just your product features.
Okay, that's a really solid grounding in the basics. Let's move into Chapter 2, core concepts of JTBD, and really drill down into those building blocks.
Great. Chapter 2 really unpacks the essential components. Kalbach starts by reiterating that definition. A job is a process of reaching objectives under given circumstances.
Right.
Then he clarifies needs. In GTBD, needs are specifically the requirements for getting the main job done well.
So, not feature requests, or just vague desires.
Exactly. They're tied directly to job success. If the main job is, say, file my annual taxes accurately,
Okay.
a related need might be minimize the time it takes to gather all the necessary documents.
Yep.
See? It makes the main job execution smoother.
Got it. Needs enable the main job.
Precisely. And like job statements, there's a consistent structure for needs. Verb plus objective plus clarifier.
Ah, mirroring the job statement format.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Kalbach references Betancourt and Ulwick's refinement desired outcome statements. These have 4 specific parts.
Okay, what are those?
Direction of change, like minimize or increase. The performance metric, time, effort, likelihood. The object of control, what's being acted on, like time to gather documents. And a contextual clarifier, like when filing taxes.
Wow, that's very specific.
It is. That precision is key for clearly identifying and later measuring how well you're meeting needs.
We also touched on circumstances before. How does Chapter 2 define them more sharply?
Circumstances are all those factors around when, how, and where a job gets done. They really influence how it's performed.
So for listen to music while running.
Circumstances could be when it's pouring rain outside, or when I'm in a really crowded gym, or when I get super sweaty during intervals.
And the needs might change depending on the circumstance.
Absolutely. Running in the rain might prioritize waterproofing needs, while the crowded gym might prioritize noise cancellation. Understand the context, the when and where, is vital to grasp the how and why.
Okay, so just to recap the 5 core elements. Main job, job performer, desired outcomes or needs, the process, the job map, and circumstances.
Perfect summary. Then Kalbach introduces the idea of job hierarchy, different levels.
Levels, like what?
He lays out aspirations, those big, broad motivations. Then the big job, the main objective we've focused on. Then little jobs, the stages within the big job. And finally, micro jobs, the smallest individual tasks or activities.
The book used that Zipcar story to show how mismatching levels can cause problems, right? Can you walk through that again?
Sure. Kalbach reserved a Zipcar, but it wasn't there. First time, customer service paid for a taxi. They solved his immediate big job. Get to his destination, visit family.
Okay, handled the main goal.
But the second time, on Mother's Day, the agent only offered other Zipcar locations, which would make him late.
So they focused on the wrong level.
Exactly. The agent focused on the little job, get Kalbach another Zipcar, but completely missed his crucial big job for that day. Arrive at his family's on time for a special occasion. The book has a table, Table 2.5, showing this hierarchy, like be a better family member as an aspiration, down to start vehicle as a micro job.
So the key is being aware of these levels and making sure your solution addresses the right one, especially the big job.
Absolutely. Always keep the customer's main objective in sight.
And there are questions to help navigate this hierarchy.
Yes, simple but powerful. Asking why repeatedly helps you move up the hierarchy, uncovering broader motivations.
Towards aspirations.
Right. And asking how helps you drill down into the process, the little jobs and micro jobs. But Kalbach stresses, always anchor yourself in that functional big job first.
So if a company wants to start applying this, what are the first concrete steps for defining their JTBD domain?
Kalbach lists 3 key initial steps.
Yeah.
1, define the main job clearly and precisely.
Okay.
2, define the job performer who's trying to get this job done.
Got it.
And 3, make an initial hypothesis about the process steps involved and the key circumstances that affect it.
Hypothesis first, then test it.
Exactly. And he really emphasizes, talk to actual potential job performers early. Don't just rely on internal assumptions. Even a few good interviews up front can save you a lot of wasted effort later.
Getting that main job definition right seems absolutely critical. Any specific tips from the book on phrasing?
Huge emphasis on this. It needs to use the customer's language, be simple, focus on one core outcome.
Not just an action.
Right. It has to reflect an outcome. He suggests that test. The object is verb. So
Hmm.
understand artwork passes. The artwork is understood, but look at a painting. Doesn't it's just an action.
Okay, the outcome test.
And the job should be stable over time, something people needed to do even before current tech existed. Getting this main job definition right is foundational. It shapes everything else. Worth spending real time on it.
This gives us a really strong grasp of the core concepts. Let's move into Chapter 3, Discovering Value, and look at the techniques for actually uncovering these jobs and needs.
Right. Chapter 3 shifts into the how-to of understanding customers. It covers three main techniques: jobs interviews, switch interviews, and job mapping.
Okay.
Kalbach starts by pointing out a common problem.
Mm.
In many companies, very few people actually talk directly to customers regularly.
Which leads to assumptions.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Products get built based on internal ideas, not real customer struggles.
So step 1 is talking to people. The book details jobs interviews. Who are we trying to interview here? Not just current customers.
Good question. The focus is on job performers, people actively trying to get the main job done. They might be your customers, but they don't have to be.
So you might talk to people using competitor products or even like manual workarounds.
Absolutely. Sometimes talking to people using completely different methods is more insightful.
Yeah.
It reveals needs your current stuff doesn't even touch. The goal is pure understanding of the job from their perspective without bias towards your solution.
How do you find these people? Recruiting seems key.
It is. Kalbach outlines using screeners, short questionnaires to filter and find the right people.
To make sure they actually are job performers meeting your criteria.
Right. Using a recruiting agency can be efficient if you have the budget.
Yeah.
But he also gives tips for DIY methods, website forms, social media outreach.
The key is being clear about who you need and not just defaulting to your existing customer list.
Exactly. Casting a wider net helps you understand the broader job landscape.
What does a typical jobs interview actually feel like? What kind of questions get you the deep insights?
Usually you follow a discussion guide. Start broad, build rapport, understand their background with the job.
Ease into it?
Yeah. Then dive into the main job, related jobs, their goals, frustrations, their ideal scenario. A big chunk should focus on the process they follow.
The steps they take.
The steps, the stages, the decisions they make, even how they feel during it. And critically, what are their desired outcomes? What does success mean to them?
And lots of why questions.
Constantly probing with why is essential to get past surface answers to the underlying needs and motivations. Active listening is key.
So you do these interviews, you get all this rich information.
Yeah.
How do you analyze it? Make it usable?
The analysis involved taking those raw notes
Yeah.
and systematically translating them into JTBD terms.
Back to job statements, needs, circumstances.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You identify and carefully formulate the job statements you heard, the underlying needs, often hidden in complaints or workarounds, and the circumstances that shape the job.
And you rewrite them using that consistent format.
Right, making sure they're solution agnostic and represent stable intent. The goal is a clear inventory of job steps, needs, and circumstances, all synthesized from the interviews.
The chapter also mentions customer-centered research, or CCR. How's that different from just doing jobs interviews?
CCR is presented as a broader umbrella. Jobs interviews are core to it, but CCR also intentionally seeks out other perspectives.
Like who?
Like switchers, people who just change solutions, polygamists using multiple solutions, newbies just starting out, quitters gave up trying, and persisters sticking with maybe a bad solution.
Why include all those different types?
Because they reveal different things: unintended product uses, barriers for new users, unarticulated needs that current users might not even mention. It gives a much richer picture.
Okay. Then there's switch interviews. We touched on Bob and Westa earlier. How do these specifically help?
Switch interviews are laser-focused. They're all about understanding the timeline and the motivations around a recent switch from one solution to another.
So, not the job in general, but that moment of change.
Exactly. You explore the first thought that sparked the search, reconstruct the whole sequence, the research, the decision, the purchase, even what happened right after.
And this reveals.
It reveals the pushes away from the old, the pulls towards the new, the anxieties about changing all gold mines for understanding unmet needs and decision drivers.
And the Four Forces framework is the tool for analyzing that switch.
Yes, it's central to switch interviews.
Yeah.
You analyze the interplay of four forces: the push of the current situation, the problems,
Okay.
the pull of the new solution,
Yeah.
the attraction,
Right.
the anxiety about the new, the fears, uncertainties,
Exactly.
and the inertia of the old habit, the comfort, sticking with what you know.
So a switch happens when push and pull overcome anxiety and inertia.
That's the idea. Analyzing the relative strength of these forces in someone's story gives you incredibly deep insights into their needs and motivations. Kalbach shows how it applies not just to buying stuff, but adopting agile or even making personal changes.
Very versatile. Okay, the last play in chapter 3 is map the main job. Tell us about creating and using a job map.
Job mapping is crucial. You take all your interview insights and create a visual chronological map of the stages and sub-goals involved in getting the main job done.
So it shows the flow of what the customer is trying to do.
Exactly, the fundamental flow of intent.
Yeah.
And this map becomes a powerful tool for spotting innovation opportunities.
How so?
You can see where the friction points are. Kalbach gives examples: Weight Watchers innovating in the define stage, U-Haul and locate, Nike and monitor. Once you have the map, you ask questions.
Like,
Is there a better sequence? Where are the biggest struggles? What causes people to fail or go off track? Can we eliminate any stages entirely?
the book even had that Talk London example, adapting switch interviews for user engagement.
Yeah, great case study. It shows how you can adapt these JTBD tools. By looking at the emotional and social jobs users wanted from Talk London, combined with UX research, they understood the system of progress needed for engagement. It guided their platform design effectively.
Okay, chapter 3 gave us the tools to discover needs. Let's move to chapter 4, defining value. This is about prioritizing and understanding the competitive landscape, right?
Exactly. Chapter 4 shifts from discovery to prioritizing those needs and figuring out how you stack up against competitors, all through that JTBD lens. The first play is find underserved needs.
And the core idea is finding needs that are important but not well served.
Precisely. The biggest opportunities often lie where customers care a lot about something, high importance, but aren't happy with current solutions, low satisfaction.
And the importance satisfaction matrix helps visualize this.
Yes, it's a simple but powerful 2x2 grid. Importance on the vertical axis, satisfaction on the horizontal. Needs in that top left quadrant, high importance, low satisfaction are your prime targets. That's where the unmet needs are.
The chapter brings back Tony Olick's ODI and those specific desired outcome statements. How does that detailed format help with prioritizing?
Remember those 4 parts: direction, metric, object, clarifier. Like, minimize direction, the time it takes metric to summarize conference insights, object after attending a virtual event, clarifier. That precision allows for much more accurate measurement.
How so?
After gathering these precise statements qualitatively, ODI uses quantitative surveys. They ask customers to rate the importance of each outcome and their current satisfaction with achieving it using existing solutions. The data clearly pinpoints the biggest gaps.
So it quantifies the unmet needs.
Exactly. Takes the guesswork out.
The book also mentioned prioritizing based on the job steps themselves.
Yeah, an alternative approach. Instead of rating the needs outcomes, you take each step from your job map.
Okay.
Then you survey job performers. How important is this step to getting the whole job done? And how satisfied are you with the current ways of doing this step?
And plot those steps on the matrix.
Right. This highlights specific parts of the process that are pain points or opportunities, rather than focusing on the outcomes themselves. Both are valid ways to prioritize.
Chapter 4 then introduces create goal-based personas. How are these different from the usual demographic personas?
Big difference. Traditional personas often lean heavily on demographics, age, income, or psychographics, lifestyle attitudes. Goal-based personas, however, are defined primarily by the goals people are trying to achieve.
So it's less about who they are and more about what they're trying to do, like Alan Cooper's goal-directed design.
Exactly like that. The focus is on their intended outcomes, their motivations, the frustrations they hit when trying to get the job done. Demographics might provide context, but the goal is the core.
How do you build these JTBD personas?
You analyze your interview data, look at the circumstances people operate under, and find clusters of people who share similar desired outcomes and similar frustrations related to the job. Figure 4.6 in the book shows how you might cluster interviewees based on these patterns.
Next up is compare competing solutions. What's the JTBD twist on competitive analysis?
The twist is thinking much broader about competition. It's not just direct competitors with similar products. It's anything a customer might hire to do the job.
Like the Scott Cook example, the pencil competing with tax software.
Exactly. For the job Do My Taxes, a pencil and paper is a competing solution. So you need to identify all the ways people get the job done, even the low-tech or workaround ways.
And then compare how they perform.
Right. You compare how these different solutions, direct competitors, indirect alternatives, workarounds perform against the job steps from your map or against the key desired outcomes you identified. Table 4.3 shows comparing manual cooking versus pre-cut ingredients versus meal kits across different job steps.
Finally, Chapter 4 leads to define a jobs-based value proposition. How does JTBD feed into this?
It feeds directly into tools like Osterwalder's Value Proposition Canvas, VPC. The VPC maps your value proposition, products, pain relievers, gain creators, against the customer profile, their jobs, pains, gains.
And JTBD defines the jobs part of that customer profile.
Precisely. Your deep understanding of the main job, the related emotional social jobs, the pains encountered that provides the crucial input for the customer side of the canvas. Then you can design pain relievers and gain creators that actually address those specific jobs and pains.
The chapter ends with that interesting critique of hackathons, calling them innovation theater. Why?
Kalbach's point is that hackathons often generate cool solutions, but without a solid grounding in a real, validated problem.
Solutions looking for a problem.
Often, yes. They can be good for energy and ideas, but real innovation, from a JTBD view, starts with deeply understanding and prioritizing unmet customer needs first. JTBD provides the framework to ensure you're solving the right problems, not just building neat tech.
That's a critical distinction. Knowing the right problem is half the battle.
Okay, let's move to Chapter 5, Designing Value. How do we translate this understanding into actual product and service design? All right, Chapter 5 is about bridging that gap from understanding to creation. The first play is create a development roadmap. Here, the JTBD lens means your roadmap isn't just a list of features. It's a sequence of development efforts aligned with customer jobs.
So prioritizing based on which jobs or needs you'll tackle when.
Exactly. Kalbach references Product Roadmaps Relaunched, which advocates organizing roadmaps around chunks of value that solve significant customer problems or help them get key jobs done.
What are the steps to building a JTBD-driven roadmap?
First, define the overall solution direction based on the jobs you're targeting. Second, prioritize the specific needs within those jobs. Third, set a rough timeline. And fourth, align your development efforts, often using things like job stories.
Align teams to job stories. Let's dig into those again. How do they work in practice?
Job stories describe a need within a situation tied to a motivation and outcome. That intercom format is common. When situation, I wanted motivation, so I can expected outcome.
Like when I'm commuting, I want to check the weather so I can decide about an umbrella.
Perfect example. They differ from user stories. As a user, I want X feature. By focusing on the context and the why behind the need.
So they guide the design thinking more than the implementation detail.
Exactly. User stories might still track the build, but job stories ensure the team understands the underlying need and situation they're solving for. You create them by drawing on your job map stages and the circumstances you uncovered.
Then there's architect the solution. What's the JTBD take on structuring a product?
The core idea is that the product or service architecture, its fundamental structure, should ideally mirror the customer's job to be done, not just based on technology or internal teams.
Like Paul Adams's Facebook example, the structure reflecting job steps, like profile creation, connecting, sharing.
Right. When the structure aligns with the user's mental model of the job, it feels more intuitive, easier to learn and use. Kalbach mentions user environment design, UED, as a method that aligns well, structuring solutions around the work users do.
The book even applied this to website navigation.
Yeah, two JTBD approaches there. One, structure navigation around the stages of your job map helps users find info relevant to where they are in the process.
Okay, and the other?
Two, categorize your navigation based on clusters of need statements. Grouping similar needs gives you labels that resonate with user goals. Both aim to align site structure with the user's job.
The last play in Chapter 5 is run experiments. Why is testing so vital here?
Because assumptions are dangerous. Experimentation lets you test your JTBD hypotheses about needs, about potential solutions early and cheaply before massive investment.
Like the Segway example, cool tech, but didn't solve a compelling enough job in the right circumstances for most people.
Exactly. Low-fidelity experiments, landing pages, prototypes, concierge tests where you manually simulate the service give you real data fast. The book mentions the Hypothesis Progression Framework, HPF, for structured testing.
And the key is learning from the results.
Absolutely. Be objective. Hold on to what works, change what doesn't. Be willing to kill ideas that aren't validated by the experiments.
The CarMax example seemed like a great illustration of this.
Yeah. Perfect case. They understood car shoppers' jobs like inspect features thoroughly online or judge car size accurately.
Right.
That led them to hypothesize that 360-degree photos would help. They tested it, it worked, they rolled it out. Job understanding led to a hypothesis, experimentation validated it, leading to a valuable feature.
Okay, Chapter 5 showed us how to design based on JTBD. Now, Chapter 6, delivering value. This is about the ongoing customer journey.
Exactly. Delivering value isn't just the initial product, it's the whole experience over time. First play, map the consumption journey.
How is this different from a job map?
A job map focuses on the customer achieving their core objective, like prepare a meal. A consumption map focuses on their journey with your solution, awareness, purchase, setup, usage, getting support, maybe canceling.
So it's about interacting with the offering itself.
Right. Kalbach contrasts it with typical customer journey maps, CJMs. While CJMs include emotions and touchpoints, he suggests structuring consumption maps around consumption jobs, the tasks related to acquiring and using your solution, like learn how to use feature X or resolve a billing issue.
The goal being to find friction in the experience of using your solution.
Precisely. Identify pain points in that consumption process and opportunities to improve it.
Next is onboard customers successfully. Why is onboarding so critical from a JTBD perspective?
Because if customers can't figure out how to use your solution to get their job done, they won't see the value and they'll leave. Especially true for subscriptions.
And it's not just about teaching features.
No. Kalbach cites Ryan Singer's distinction. Don't just onboard into the tool, onboard into the job. Help them see how your tool enables their outcome.
Alan Clement's framework helps tailor this.
Yeah, it considers their prior experience and job understanding to design better onboarding. The key is guiding them through an initial relevant task so that they quickly experience value in the context of their job.
Chapter 6 also tackles maximize customer retention. What's the JTBD way to stop churn?
It starts with understanding why people leave deeply.
Yeah.
Go beyond the exit survey checkbox. Kalbach stresses finding the first thought that led them to consider canceling.
How do you do that?
Cancellation interviews. Actually talk to churn customers.
Yeah.
Ask about their experience, the triggers, the underlying frustrations. Often reveals much deeper issues.
And then look for patterns.
Look for patterns in those churn reasons so you can proactively fix the root causes. The Four Forces framework can also help analyze the pushes away from you and pulls towards alternatives.
That Zipcar story came up again regarding customer support. What was the lesson?
The lesson was, support needs to understand the customer's job, not just the immediate technical problem.
Right, the agent focused on the unavailable car, not Kalbach's need to get to his family event on time.
Exactly. Jobs-driven support means listening for the underlying job, clarifying the real need, how does this impact you, and solving the core issue in a way that helps them achieve their objective. Go beyond the symptom.
Okay, delivering value is clearly an ongoing effort. Let's hit the final core chapter. Chapter 7, redeveloping value. This is about continuous innovation and growth.
Yes, Chapter 7 is about using JTBD for the long haul, sustained innovation, growth, staying relevant. It touches on Christensen's disruption theory.
Where newcomers undercut incumbents.
Right. Kalbach argues JTBD helps incumbents stay focused on customer success, which is key to navigating or avoiding disruption. Keep evolving to help customers get their jobs done better.
The first play here is look at markets through a jobs lens. How does this change how we see our market?
Fundamentally, instead of defining markets by products like the CD market or demographics, millennials, you define it by the job customers are trying to do. Listen to music.
Why is that better?
Because the job is usually much more stable over time than the solutions are. Records, tapes, CDs, MP3s, streaming the solutions changed, but the core job, listen to music, persisted. Focusing on the job keeps you attuned to new ways customers might fulfill it, beyond your current product category.
Kalbach reframed GPS using JTBD terms to illustrate this.
Yeah, showing how defining the job, navigate, performer, traveler, needs, and circumstances paints a different strategic picture than just thinking about the GPS device market.
The chapter contrasts JTBD growth ideas with traditional strategies. How does JTBD offer a different angle on growth?
Traditional growth might be market penetration, new products for existing markets, etc. JTBD frames growth around helping customers make more progress on their jobs.
Wow.
Maybe help them do more steps of the job, or do existing steps better, or do related job steps, or tackle entirely new jobs they struggle with. Tony Olwick's JTBD growth strategy matrix helps categorize these opportunities based on doing the job better, worse, and cheaper, more expensive.
Then there's organize around jobs. This is about team structure.
Yes. Instead of just functional silos, marketing, engineering, or product lines, it suggests structuring cross-functional teams around key customer jobs.
Why would you do that?
The idea is aligning your internal structure with customer objectives fosters better collaboration, more customer-centric decisions, and smoother value delivery. Think Spotify squads or intercom organizing around jobs like support or onboarding or USAA focusing on life event experiences.
Might be hard to overhaul completely, but adopting parts can help.
Exactly. Even smaller steps can break down silos and increase customer focus.
Creating shared value also comes up. How does JTBD connect?
Shared value is about businesses succeeding by addressing societal needs. JTBD aligns naturally because it's all about deeply understanding and solving fundamental human needs and objectives. Helping people get jobs done better inherently creates value for them and potentially society, alongside profit.
The last play is expand market opportunities. How does JTBD help find totally new growth areas?
By looking beyond the immediate job, ask why. Understand the broader progress customers seek, their higher-level aspirations.
Like the Airbnb example, shifting from renting a room to the product is the trip.
Exactly. Realizing the job wasn't just accommodation, but the entire travel experience. Open up huge new opportunities in local tours, activities, etc. Understanding the bigger why behind the job reveals adjacent needs and markets.
Wow, this has been incredibly thorough. We've really covered the core concepts, the techniques, the whole flow from discovery to redevelopment based on Kalbach's playbook. As we wrap up, what are the biggest takeaways?
I think the main thing is that JTBD offers this really powerful, practical way to put the customer's actual objectives at the center of everything you do. It's a mindset shift backed by actionable methods.
Moving from focusing on your product to focusing on their job.
Precisely. And doing that consistently unlocks insights for better innovation, better marketing, better strategy overall. It's about understanding what people are fundamentally trying to achieve.
Definitely. And for everyone listening, we really hope you'll think about how these ideas, the interviews, the mapping, the forces, the job stories might apply in your own context.
And maybe that final thought to chew on. If you truly shifted your focus from what your product is to the job your customer is trying to get done, what completely new opportunities might that reveal? What assumptions might fall away?
That's a great question to ponder. We absolutely recommend checking out the Jobs to Be Done playbook itself and the other resources mentioned for an even deeper dive. Thanks so much for joining us on the Deep Dive.